Hello and welcome to the 20th and final episode of the New 151 Spotlight. If by some chance you have stumbled on this without seeing any of the previous episodes, let me get you oriented. If you're already familiar, you can use the chapter markers to skip ahead. In 2016, my friend Infinipede and I wanted to mark the 20th anniversary of Pokemon by redesigning all 151 original Pokemon. The idea was to update their design philosophy to better match modern trends in Pokemon design. We also took the opportunity to change some things we didn't like about the originals and put some of our own spin on them. We shared the starters on Pokemon Day 2016. Since then, we recruited our friend Banana Meteor to help us and eventually started sketching our ideas on stream to get feedback from viewers and to help us stay regular. We finally completed the project in September 2022 after 6.5 years. You can see all 151 redesigns on our Tumblr page at new151.tumblr.com, and you can watch this video series where we talk about our process and look back on the results. This final episode is all about the legendary Pokemon of Kanto, Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, which we all worked on together, with each of us taking the lead on one of them, and Mewtwo and Mew, which were my designs. Who had the first idea here?
I had the idea of each of us doing a different bird. I know that much.
Right. I think I suggested that we kind of coordinate our ideas to try to keep them coherent.
Yeah.
All right. Let's each go in turn. So Articuno first. What were your thoughts?
You wanted us to incorporate like a combination of several different birds into our bird designs to make them kind of like legendary. So I went with a couple different like snowbirds, birds that live in the Arctic, migratory birds. The biggest inspiration for the coloration was the ptarmigan, which has those like big, I think the males at least have those big red eyebrows that I wanted to kind of incorporate into Articuno's crest. One of my gripes about Articuno is that it just doesn't have enough color. Compared to Zapdos and Moltres, who have, you know, the black and the yellow are more contrasting, and Moltres has different colors from the fire. Articuno is just kind of like blue and darker blue and lighter blue. I really like Galarian Articuno. I feel like it fixes that as well as makes it much more elegant, like both pose and mood-wise. We actually based the leg positioning in the final art on Galarian Articuno. And I wanted to really emphasize the ice type. So Icicle Wings made sense, as well as making the Aurora tail more obvious, because that's my interpretation on why the tail is the way it is.
The Icicle Wings, I think you put that in before we discussed anything else for like how to integrate them. But that was part of why I think I suggested that we put the elements that they are related to on all of the designs.
I feel like that just makes sense in general. They're supposed to be sort of representations of these elements.
Yeah, and Moltres already has the fire wings anyway.
I feel like some people, you know, thought I made Articuno worse. I think the things I would change about it now would be I would make the fluff longer like the original, but that's about it. I don't think I really made the design worse. Maybe the eyes like a little less elegant looking. If you look at the original, the eyes are basically the same. I just made the eyebrows red.
Yeah. So my concept for Zapdos, I really like Zapdos. It's not my favorite in terms of the design, but it's my favorite overall of the original birds. And mostly I find that the design is really simple, of course, and that the wings are really awkwardly shaped. Those were the two kind of things that I wanted to fix. The birds that I kind of focused on, I wanted to look at various iconic like North American birds because Zapdos is at least partially based on a Thunderbird, so I just wanted to look at North American references in general. So it's a bald eagle, turkey vulture, and a woodpecker were really the big ones, and there's a little bit of a magpie in there as well. The tail being elemental, let's say, was not part of my original concept, and it's probably the part of it that I like the least in the end. We can go back and talk about how we feel about them in the end after we talk about Moltres first.
So since we were all leaning into different birds for our designs, I wanted to lean into the rooster, specifically because people always meme on Moltres for looking like a rubber chicken, which is true. It's totally true. So I thought it would be kind of fun to do that for the new design, but do it in a way that was much cooler looking instead of kind of looking like a joke prop from a dollar store. I say this as someone who likes Moltres, but I understand that when it comes to being imposing, it does not really succeed in that. It's one of the more derpy looking legendary Pokemon. I don't think legendary Pokemon normally strive for that. They're supposed to kind of be these regal things. I weirdly think that I know they're the bird we all eat, but well, in society, not us specifically. But there's a certain regality to roosters that I really enjoy, and just the way they carry themselves. And I think they have a lot of really cool plumage colors too, which is why I tried to put some of the blue into the tail, because I think not only is that a fun color for fire, but like chickens often have those big blue long feathers on their tail. I think I originally had green in my design, but I actually like what we switched to more here, where it's got both, so the tail doesn't look too disconnected from the rest of the design. Then I just kind of did stuff like added in a little fire gobbler and tried to keep feathers on the design too, so it did not look naked.
We made a lot of changes, not like significant changes, but just like little adjustments to colors. Like we were thinking like maybe all of them are going to have a little bit of red and a little bit of blue or something like that, and a little bit of yellow, I guess.
Yeah, I'm totally on board with all the color changes we made. I guess I get really picky on proportions, because looking at my original design again, I kind of wish it had more of that sort of imposing pompousness that I originally penned, but like the color changes we made were absolutely for the better.
How do all of you feel about them? Not just your designs, but all of them as a set.
I think they all look great. Like, I really do like the Zapdos. The Moltres definitely succeeds at what it was trying to do. I like how they all kind of match up. They all have like blue tails and the elemental representation. They all have red somewhere on the head. I think they work really well as a set.
Yeah, I think the only thing, because we ended up with designs that all utilize the 3 primary colors, which I think is really cool. It's hard to recommend this because like I want to say like, hey, maybe we should have played up the red and the yellow a little more on Articuno, but then I think it makes its singular design look worse. So I don't know what the answer is.
Like I said, maybe if I had made the whole crest red, it would have looked better, but then I think it would have taken out some of the like Arctic birdness from the concept.
Right, and then you run into the danger too of looking too much like the Pidgey line. So like what is the answer?
I'm not super happy with them. In particular, I'm not super happy with Zapdos. I think Moltres looks great for what it is and as an improvement on the original Moltres. Articuno, the changes that I would make just for like my personal preferences would be fairly small. I would probably not give it the icicles, and I would make the tails bigger, but like that's about it, not huge changes to it. The Zapdos, I don't know, like I'm really not feeling that tail anymore. I don't know if that would be enough for me to be like, okay, now it feels right. But it doesn't appeal to me in the way that the original Zapdos does, even though the original Zapdos is very simple and awkward.
Do you think making bigger feet would help? Because I feel like the big, large chicken legs are such a crucial part of the Zapdos design.
I don't think so. I think, like, if anything, it would be making the head smaller to be more proportionate with the feet and the rest of the body, because I like it having giant wings. But then the head would also be really small overall. So I can think of changes that I would like to make so that Zapdos is closer to, you know, what I would like Zapdos to be. But I don't think I would put any kind of elemental lightning on it, and so that would make it less fitting with the others as a set. Maybe we could have gotten there with all of them if we had spent even more time, you know, doing various iterations and things like that. We might have been able to find a solution, but I don't think that we did.
I don't know if we would be able to find something that would satisfy all of us, because we all have such different ideas of like what makes a good design.
That's fair.
It makes me wonder if internally that they have one singular designer work on trios like this, because when you're working with 3 different people's vision, it's definitely tough. It's tough to do something that not only satisfies the individual design, but makes them work as a trio.
I liked it as definitely as an experiment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think they came out good.
I think Libris is probably the most sour on these 3. I think
Yeah.
Ness and I find them a little more successful, but that's fine.
Yeah, it might have been easier to get somewhere that is equally successful for all 3 if we did have just one of us do the starting point and then all of us together kind of iterate on it. That said, I'm not dissatisfied with our process. I think that each of us having taking the lead on one was the right choice for the project.
Agreed.
Yeah.
So, Mew and Mewtwo. Even though Mewtwo comes first in the Pokedex, I designed Mew first. It is conceptually, at least, the basis of Mewtwo. Whether it was actually, design-wise in the original the basis of Mewtwo, I have no idea. But my complaint about Mew is basically the same one for all of them. It's just very plain. It really needs more colors. Like that's really all that I wanted to add to Mew. But I also had an idea for something to heighten the themes of Mew. Obviously, it's got genetics, it's got some birth elements, it's got some elements of like being the origin of all Pokemon, and psychic powers. So the one thing that kind of just like came to me was a call. So a call, or an end-call birth, is when a baby is born with a piece of the amniotic sac either covering its head or its face, or sometimes still completely encased in the amniotic sac that doesn't break. These are very rare, but in many cultures they are associated with good luck or with supernatural abilities of some kind. It plays into Mew being a rare, mythical, like never before seen kind of Pokemon. It plays into the psychic abilities. And because especially with the way that I drew it, it kind of looks like a space helmet and it has spacey colors. It also plays into the kind of space side of the psychic type, which also in turn plays into the theory of panspermia, which is one of the possible ways that life began, both in the real world and in the Pokemon world, which is organic material coming from space. The twisty tail from Mew largely comes from our design for Ditto, because part of the concept that we used for Ditto was that it's a failed Mew clone, and so it made sense to incorporate elements of that in here. Mew has 2 coiled tails instead of just one, but it's, in terms of it, the way that it's colored and things like that, it's quite similar. It has the 2 colors, it has the purple and the pink to symbolize the 2 sides of the helix. For Mewtwo, ultimately it's the same kind of approach. It's not super simple because Mewtwo actually does have a fairly complex design, but it doesn't have a lot going on in terms of colors. And so it was just a matter of tweaking that a little bit and then bringing in the elements of what I did with Mew to make them consistent. For Mewtwo, the call has been broken, and that's what makes up the shoulder now. And I took a lot of inspiration from Mega Mewtwo, especially Mega Mewtwo Y. Hopefully I'm remembering the right one. Because Mega Mewtwo Y is the one that feels more like an improvement or an enhancement of the original Mewtwo concept, so that seemed like the right one to take as inspiration. I actually leaned into kind of the shiny colors because I liked the idea that it looks kind of sickly, that it's not healthy because it's a lab experiment. And I also kind of extended the tail to be coming from the head, so let's say the same kind of spine that goes from the top of the head down the back, through the chest to the front, and then in the belly and out the back as the tails. That is, a little bit coming from Mega Mewtwo Y, also kind of emphasizing this psychic element. the colors of the legs and the colors of the arms, they alternate to match the color of the tail that's on that side. And the two tails they're kind of unspooled, right? They're not as tightly woven to reference gene editing, because in order to edit genes, you have to unspool the DNA first.
I think it's cool that you have all these extra elements that don't necessarily read on first look, but don't impede the design at all. And if you know the lore, it's like, wow, cool. This makes a lot of sense for the reason that these two Pokemon exist. I think my only criticism has to do with the pose on Mewtwo. And it's just because you used a pose that had like a prominent thigh gap. Nothing wrong with that. But totally makes sense when Mewtwo has a really big, thick, singular tail, but looks a little awkward when you split it into two tinier tails. But other than that, totally cool, and the genetic theming really reads right away when you look at these guys.
For sure. One of my gripes with Mewtwo's design was that he just had that, like, neck cord that was just there, and that was it. Mm-hmm. That always really bothered me. I'm like, okay, yeah, it's because he's a clone or something, but why? Why is that the one thing that looks like that on his body?
Yeah, it just feels like they didn't lean into it. They didn't want to commit enough to the concept that they had, you know?
Yeah. So I'm glad that's become part of his, it feels integrated into his design now, and I like that.
I guess I didn't mention it before, but there's a little bit of influence from Deoxys into the design as well.
That reads for sure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm really happy with both of these. I think the colors work really well. The Mewtwo especially, like, I've always liked Mewtwo, but, you know, that's in part because it was the first, like, cool, rare, powerful, legendary. It was such a huge focus of the first movie, for, like, multiple movies, right? Like, it's always been a very prominent Pokemon, so I think that's part of why I've always liked it. But this is a big improvement on the design without sacrificing anything of the concept. Maybe I would like it a little bit more if it was still purple, if I didn't make it green, but, like, I like the idea that it's sickly. So the purple one can be the shiny one.
I know I'm green biased, but I think you made the right choice.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It looks good.
And that is all of the designs for the new N51. Let us know in the comments what you think about these legendary redesigns. Not even a little laugh.
No.
The new N51 is over, and the new N51 Spotlight is over, but this is not the last you'll hear about the project. No, we're not planning on doing Gen 2, but later this year, we will record a longer conversation looking back on the project as a whole and our favorite redesigns. I hope you look forward to that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next chapter.
Epilogue!